the NHLPA review, the report that came out 5 days ago. Obviously, we didn't record on Sunday, so we did not talk about it yet. Obviously, after the Jenner and Block report came out about Kyle Beach and the Chicago Blackhawks and the absolute lack of anything that they did, the Blackhawks, the NHLPA decided to do an investigation on whether they did anything wrong. By the way, they did, despite the next conversation we'll be having. And they released it 5 days ago. And I just want to read the thing that they posted on Twitter, not the entire thing. Just, I want to read this little snippet because it's kind of egregious. Quote, the Cozen report determined that in sum, after a thorough examination of the contemporaneous record, the policies and practices in place at the union at the time, and the recollections of each of the parties to the contacts with the NHLPA or the SABH program, we cannot identify any individual wrongdoing, or institutional failures of policy or procedure by either FEAR, NHLPA personnel, or the SABH program concerning the handling of Beach's reports. And Beach's warnings about Aldrich were not addressed on account of miscommunication and misunderstanding rather than any individual or systemic failure. That they posted that on Twitter. You read the report.
Yeah.
I read the report. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. That's a slap in the face. I'm sorry. I have other quotes from within it, but I want to start with you. What was that? Like, what was that report? Like, I'm stunned.
I think for me, it's just, I don't know. I don't know the amount of times I've said this about the league, about how things are going with it, where it's like they never fully address it, if that makes sense. They never actually say this is what happened or this is what we're going to do or so forth. It's just, maybe we just got lost in the miscommunication of things, or it's just a subtle way of saying that we acknowledge what you said, but we're not going to do anything about it. That we feel that this is just like not our responsibility. That I think it's something that, I don't know. It's just, it is really scary, to be honest. Like, if I were a player and I can't trust that I'm going to be protected in any way, or just reporting on anything, it's just this feeling that I don't know how to describe it, that it just, the whole idea of like things will just fall into deaf ears.
Yeah.
I really feel like that's how it is, no matter what with the NHL right now, whatever is coming up.
There, in the report, they talk about like the phone calls and emails that happened not okay. Like, yes, they do not word for word describe the incidents that happened, but from the report, it does explain that within those, at least the emails, that it was mentioned that there was some not good things happening. I'm just pulling up this here. So Gurney, which I believe is one of the player agents, not Kyle Beach's agents, a different Black Ace. Gurney told us that he recalled describing Aldrich as either a, quote, pedophile or, quote, sexual predator in his call with FEAR, but did not provide FEAR with any details of what had allegedly transpired between Beach and Aldrich. It gets better. FEAR denied having any recollection of the call, a position he has constantly maintained in both his few public statements as well as our interviews of him. In our interviews, FEAR an experienced lawyer repeatedly made the point that if Gurney had either described Aldrich as a pedophile or sexual predator or requested him to contact USA Hockey, he would have remembered it. Where do you want to start with that, those like 3 or 4 sentences?
I guess I don't know, like the part was like, oh, I don't remember it.
I'm just this feels like pure incompetence. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, you have someone saying that in this phone call, I described Aldrich as a quote pedophile or quote sexual predator, and did nothing.
Like, I don't know how else you could describe, because those are pretty explicit words that you could call someone and not actually take it seriously like that is, I don't know. It's I'm kind of speechless right now on it, because when I first read the report and I first was looking into all the analysis too, especially from Elliot Friedman, yeah, it's just this feeling of like, it's just that same feeling we talked about again. It's just people wanted to cover it up, and yes, they resigned. Rocky Wirtz really told us about that during the team meeting. The GM resigned. Stan Bowman's gone, and like, I think that there was that opportunity here to fully address it by the NHLPA, and as of right now, it's just that feeling again where you realize it is a small circle. You don't want to do the quote unquote rock the boat with anything. And I don't know, it's just like when I feel like it's like you're tone deaf in a way where you're not looking at the writing on the wall of this is a big deal. This is a huge issue. Everyone else is speaking about it, but the NHL is still in its own sphere of things. Of this is how we do things, and you don't speak out. We want to maintain this sense of identity that I don't really know what it is anymore, to be honest with the NHL. That we want to maintain what we are, and we can't have these quote unquote real world problems seeping in.
I 100% agree. And going back to that snippet I read, does it not? Okay, so first off, we're in agreement that just that part alone I read. This is a 20-page report, and I read you 3 or 4 sentences. What that was an individual or systemic failure? Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
That statement that the NHLPA put out is wrong.
Yeah,
they are liars. It's just a lie. It's a lie. And I want to say, and you tell me if you disagree or agree with me here, but Donald Fair, an experienced lawyer, was unneeded. And to me, it didn't sit right when I read it like that. In our interviews, Fair, an experienced lawyer, repeatedly made the point that if Gurney had either described Aldrich as a pedophile or sexual predator or requested him to contact USA Hockey, he would have remembered it. Really? That's what we're going to go off of, even though we have an email and a phone call. But because Donald Fair said it didn't happen, it didn't happen.
Wow, that's really horrible due diligence right there.
Like, I'm thinking, if I'm, again, this probably will never happen, but if I'm in his position and I have a phone call that says that, I'm on top of it 100%. I'm on top of it 100%. It honestly, it left me very uncomfortable. Not anywhere near the Jenner and Block report, because that I think the Jenner and Block report was very, very detailed in terms of what actually happened, and I will never forget reading that report. This was completely different, and I don't think near that. But I just, come on, really? That's what you got from it? That there was no individual or systemic failure? How on earth could you say it? Like, how could you write that down, publish it? Oh, like, come on. I have so many thoughts in my head going at once, but like, because there was so much happened before and after it. Before the report came out, well, there was a power outage. Okay. You know, like what they did, right? Sorry, Daniel. I don't mean to ramble on. I'm gonna
No. This is excellent stuff. It's just like the power outage one. I
like the power, like, you know what that reminded me of? There'd be times during the pandemic where both the federal government or provincial government would casually throw something out around 5 p.m. on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Just late enough where not like, maybe not 5 o'clock, because that's still a reasonable time, but just late enough where some people would see it, but a lot of people wouldn't. And that's what that felt like, where at 10 a.m., sorry, we can't release this, but we'll release this at 4 o'clock in the middle of prime time driving sports radio. Are you really? Like, that's when you're, come on. Like, I love Stephen Brunt and I love the guys on Overdrive, but they're not going to get to that because that's a damn detailed report. Or they'll get to it, but it won't be the proper discussion it deserves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that took time to go through. And I think for everybody, including Westhead and including Friedman, and I saw other people write about it too. The power outage thing just was kind of ridiculous. Do you have anything to add about the 5 minutes I think I was talking?
No, like, I think it's just when they do these things, I know that why they do it in terms of why they publish it, but I think for me it's just it just, I don't know, it exposes it more of, you're not handling this very well. You're not doing what you think you're going to do, because there are guys like you mentioned. There is a Rick Westhead out there. There is an Elliot Friedman. We're going to look into this, and there's going to be analysis on this report eventually. So I don't know. I think it is a time where, when I mentioned that sphere concept of what the NHL is in terms of blocking out all the outside noises with everything, I think that this might be bold or this might be incorrect, that we're in a time right now that the NHL can't hide anymore. That there's going to be a lot of voices that are continuing the conversation on this. I know it's not going to be monumental shifts in any way like we've seen anywhere else, but I think that there is a change there.
See, I do agree with you to an extent. It's just, I was going to bring this up later, but since we're talking about it now, I do want to get back to the report, because there was stuff about Donald Fehr afterwards in terms of the NHL players and stuff like that. So I do want to bring that up. But did you know that around the time, the Kyle Beach, I believe it was the report first came out, that Gary Bettman got a contract extension?
I remember that.
Do you? Because I didn't. I do not remember that at all. I heard about that last night on the Steve Dangle podcast.
I just remember the hubbub everybody had on Twitter about it, but then like it was kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of like, it was just that, it was just the isolated thing. It wasn't like just one, like it wasn't like mixed in with anything.
It was completely thrown under, in my opinion. Like, listen, I don't know everything, but I felt that was thrown under the rug a little bit in terms of reporting on. And that's why, like, I do agree with you in terms of, yes, we will keep talking about this story, because I think this is a never ending story in terms of there's always stuff that's going to be coming out about whether it's Kyle Beach or whether it's someone else. And I hope not, but there's a very good chance that there might be someone else too. And I think there's really good reporters out there who are going to report on it. Rick Westhead, Katie Strang. I'm sure I'm missing loads of people. The local reporters in Chicago who were on this first, God, I hope there's local reporters in other cities that would be willing to do the same. But again, I just think the biggest guys, and so I don't want to disparage Rick Westhead. Rick Westhead is incredible at what he does, and he is a well-known hockey journalist, or investigative sports journalist. Sorry. But one is not enough. There needs to be more than just Rick Westhead properly reporting on this stuff. And like, I was ready to walk into this show today and say, wow, credit to X, Y, and Z on reporting on this. I saw, obviously, Friedman wrote about it. There was a few others I saw as well. But when I heard the Gary Bettman contract extension, I'm like, out the door. The credit's out the door, like, gone. Like, I'm not interested. Like, yeah. We're come on. You have to properly do this stuff.
I think, yeah, like we mentioned it before, we always talk about small circles when it comes to the higher ups with things, but like the NHL is probably the smallest of the smallest.
The 200 hockey men.
Yeah, that I don't know. You're not gonna, if the guy still wants to do it, you're not gonna take out the ringleader. If the guy still wants to keep on going and be the commissioner, he dictates what's gonna happen. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking about it right now where you were right. There wasn't really much written on it. I just got the updates on it. I never got any like critical analysis on what does this mean for the game moving forward.
And I believe it happened during like an executive meeting. There's the 32 owners, but there's the executive owners. And I believe it happened during that meeting. And it's frustrating, right? Because I keep bringing this up, but whatever, the last 24 months have been very difficult for hockey, yet the people that I believe should be instrumental in exposing the problems aren't really doing that, right? Like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when that happens. Is there anything else about the Gary Bettman stuff before I just want to quickly finish up with the report?
Nothing really. I don't know. I don't. I've said it before. I've said it. Like, I'm not surprised he got the extension.
No.
I'm not surprised. Okay, two things. I'm not surprised he got the extension, and I'm not surprised that it happened behind closed doors. Very NHL-like.
Right. And Daniel, we both know. Like, a lot of more people knew about it than it was probably led on. Like, let's not forget, Frank Saravelli broke every single expansion draft pick before it was on television. Like, it's a small circle, but it's an open book.
Yeah.
And it's people choosing not to talk about it. That's what's slowing us down. And remember that report you sent us where it was like, there was 2 maybe NHLers on the list of the most, was it profitable
Canadian athlete? Yeah.
Really?
Mitch Marner is in top 10.
Yeah, but it's the biggest sport. It's supposedly the biggest sport in the country.
Yeah.
And all due respect to Alphonso Davies, definitely should be up there. But who was two? Tristan Thompson?
Yeah, Tristan Thompson, and then
Come
Lance Stroll.
on. Like, okay, Lance Stroll, I get, Lance Stroll, I understand, but Tristan Thompson, Ridley,
I know.
It's frustrating. That's all it is. That's why
It is.
I'm like this. I want to quickly go back to the report. Obviously, with the fallout of everything that happened, even before this report, there was a lot of questions about Don Fear. I believe he's 75 or almost 75. And after this report came out, there were some questions about whether he'd still be on board and, what's this succession plan? And this was from Rick Westhead after the report. This was on the 16th, the day after. Hearing of divide among NHL players over report on NHLPA executive director Don Fear. Some say Fear exonerated, others angry over his "I have no recollection" responses. Will be interesting to watch whether Fear, 73, sorry, not 75, is allowed to influence search for his successor as he plots an exit.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how you read the report. Like, if you're like this, if you're like not properly looking.
I don't recall. Yeah.
Oh no. Yes. Then sure. I understand why you think he would be exonerated, but minimal critical thinking skills would tell you otherwise. That's the frustrate. Like, how do you read that and say, we're good?
I don't
We're good here.
Yeah.
Wait, remember when Wayne Gretzky, and you kind of brought it up before, but remember when Wayne Gretzky said that stuff about Chicago on national television in the United States? He's like, I would want to know if my child is going to be safe or not. Guys,
oh my goodness.
Like, how does anyone not read that and then read this report and be like, I guess my child's going to be safe? Okay, I'll ask you a question because I've talked a little too much. What would you say if the report came out that Donald Fear is going to be heavily involved in his succession plan, in his successor? Sorry.
More of the same. I think, and this, I don't know if this is going to be accurate, but it does feel like it sometimes where when these things are brought up, there's this feeling where there are people, and we talk about, the 200 men in hockey, or we talk about the old time hockey fans, or we talk about hockey culture. When these things are brought up, I think that they really do get on the defensive on things where it's just these like, oh, that's an isolated situation. That's not hockey. That's not hockey to us. We have to maintain that this is our identity. Or if something is brought up like negatively, like, we talk about Tom Wilson a lot sometimes when he has those punches or those hits, and like people with like, some old fashioned hockey fans would be like, oh, that's real hockey. But other times where there is a troublemaker kind of thing, like, I'll mention Evander Kane. I know we're going to talk about him after, but I'll mention Evander Kane. And what I see sometimes, and it's not everybody, but on Twitter, sometimes you see, oh, that's not hockey. It's just a couple of bad apples that these things happen, but that's not the sport. Don't look at the one thing and say, oh, this is it. We have our own identity we established and we're good with it.
Well, I think you're spot on there. And I think what sometimes because I think we bring it up quite often, but what sometimes people ignore is that, yes, these things are going to, whether there's rules in place or not, bad things happen. Bad things can happen. It's, do you have the proper rules in place to deal with when these bad things happen? And a lot of the times we find out in the NHL, the answer is no. And it's April 20th, 2022. That's not acceptable. Like, it's not.
I'm trying to, like, because we talked about the GTHL as well. that
Right.
there's those situations going on. And listen, like, I know this, and I'm not saying every situation is the same, but like there's just these things coming up that suddenly it's like this is not like an isolated incident, that there has to be ways to prevent these things from happening.
100%. And I really hope the NHL does something real soon. My guess it won't, but like, again, we got it. People have to keep reporting on it. That's how things are going to get done. Hopefully, it's going to be an interesting period the next few years for hockey, and especially the NHL.